This is a short presentation about the earliest Jain sculpture from Kankali Tila. The site is located in Mathura, which is somewhat of a boundary area between the Achaemenid Empire and India at the earliest phase. The Lohanapur torso from Bihar is possibly the earliest Jain image. It might date from the 3rd century BCE or as late as the 2nd century CE. Each of these date ranges carries with it a different set of assumptions, and it is quite possible that much of the later art from the 2nd century CE follows the earlier tradition. The earliest phase here considered, the Maurya Empire, is known for its incredibly fine sculpture with its mirror-like finish. Some archaeologists would like to see this as a continuation of the Greek tradition, whereas it seems more likely that this is an indigenous tradition. The Indo-Scythians were known to have ruled this area in the 2nd century BCE to the 4th century CE. This brings us to a consideration of the Vrishni heroes, which were recovered from Mora near Mathura. These sculptures are of a very particular style, and they are associated with inscriptions that date them. The Kushans are associated with the Romans, and they are closely associated with the flowering and spread of what is called Greco-Buddhist art that follows many classical traditions. Much early Buddhist and Jain art from the Mathura area is from the Kushan period. However, many of these pieces clearly follow earlier models. At the earliest phase of Jain art at this site and at Mathura, the figures are unclothed, which suggests that the Digambar-Svetambar division is not yet evident. Many of the pieces from Kankali are dating to the 1st century CE, not on the basis of art historical considerations, but from inscriptions. Some of the earliest Jain art from Kankali Tila has what is identified by some as Persian design elements. This is an interesting question, but it is perfectly possible that these elements came from India. They did not come from Persia. For example, it is known that Greek craftsmen, particularly sculptors, worked on Persepolis. It is perfectly possible for artisans from India to have also worked on Persepolis, although as of yet there is no hard evidence this occurred. Many of the Jain sculptures from Mathura and elsewhere are clearly following wooden models, which brings us to a consideration of the Mauryan polish. It is possible that this highly polished mirror-like surface is to imitate lac, and it is known that lac has a long history in India. To summarize quickly, the earliest attested period of Jain art at Kankali Tila is likely the 1st century CE, although there can be individual pieces that are earlier. The site fits well with the Mathura school, as broadly considered. The earliest phase follows much earlier traditions from the Maurya period, and it's possible that the highly polished sculpture that some people like to attribute to the Achaemenids was an Indian innovation. Much of the wooden sculpture of this period has perished, and the surviving stonework may distort the art historical narrative. The example, of course, is Persepolis, that could have received workmen from both East and West. There is clearly a considerable amount of innovation occurring in northern India at this time, and it was tied to the West via the Iranian cultural sphere. Thank you very much for your attention.